Welcome back to Conversations from the Hearth. Today we're having a sit down, Mr. Trader and myself. I wanted to ask him some questions about his bout that he was in just this last weekend. He did a great job representing Rising Phoenix Martial Arts. We had our ups and our downs, but I think overall probably was a good experience, but we'll find out here in just a minute. So, Mr. Trader, welcome to Conversations from the Hearth. Tell me, how was your bout at the Bushikan this last weekend?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to be back on the podcast. So, a couple big things, big takeaways from this past weekend. One, if you've seen any of the videos, there were some hard hits this weekend. And so this week I'm kind of recovering from that and feeling out, where I got hit, but also reflecting on what we tell our students all the time, which is 7 times down, 8 times up, right? Whenever you get hit, if you go down, you stand back up, you keep going, you keep going. And that's really what it means to be a martial artist, right? And to show that heart. So those are kind of the two extremes that I'm sitting between this week coming back from the match. I certainly feel like going into this match, my mindset was very different than the first match. Last time I had no idea who I was going to be fighting. And then when I got there, I was fighting a weight class above where I expected to be fighting in. This time around, a few weeks in advance, I already knew who my opponent was going to be. I'm really grateful. I had met Cole actually before, and so I knew him and we had talked already, and that was really cool. And so going in, there was a little more ease. And so now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I balance that sense of comfort with the necessary sense of competitive spirit as well? So, yes, sir.
So, you did good. You had, some good shots of your own, but, there were a few times, especially kind of pretty early on, you got hit pretty hard and just sort of dazed. What was going through your mind during those times you got hit with a couple of heavy shots?
So, in the moment, there's the physical experience that's happening. And I mean, my ears were ringing, and it's like you see in the movies, like you get hit, and suddenly I'm looking at the ground, and I was like, oh man, I'm falling down, I'm falling, here we go. But that's when our training kicks in. I was really proud, watching that video again, even though I took a pretty heavy shot to the face. I went down, I rolled out, I stood back up, and I put my hands back up. And that's a testament to the training that we do here all the time. Just last week we were practicing rolling out, and when you fall down, how do you roll? How do you stand back up on your feet? So I'm feeling pretty proud of that. The mental experience happening there, also comes down to the training. I thought a lot during the match and after the match about the famous master paper that I wrote. So I think that's blue to red belt. I wrote about Fumio Demura, who most people kind of know as the inspiration for Mr. Miyagi. He was also Mr. Miyagi's stunt double in the original Karate Kid, but he has this amazing story. I won't go too deep into it here, but basically he had a stroke or he had a heart attack, and he was in bad shape, and he was on the hospital bed in a coma for an extended period of time, and one of his students was sitting there next to him, and he remembers, Master Demura waking up from his coma just saying, I don't give up. I don't give up. I don't give up. And then like slipping back into the coma. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty freaking awesome. And so, yes. And so, that's what was running through my mind. It's like, I don't give up. I can't give up. This is what we train for. This is what we tell our students all the time,
I think that was one of the greatest parts of your match was that heart you showed out there. And, there were some really good matches that day, but I think yours took the cake with the audience engagement. And I think it did that because you showed that heart, And it's ultimately why we're doing this. We're not going out there to win. I mean, that's nice. And sure, we want to win, but we want to learn. And we learn a lot from, many people have never been hit hard in the face and then had to fight through that, and that's a really important experience to have.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will
So,
say I went home that night and my wife came home and she said, "How was the match?" And I was like, "Oh, I got hit pretty hard in the face." And she was like, "What?" And I said, "And you know what? I think more people need to get hit pretty hard in the face every once in a while." It really puts things into perspective. You
Yes,
do not want to get to that level unless you are really uh, needing to defend yourself, or unless you're really standing up for something you believe in. Because, yeah, I mean, taking that hit, I have to also now think, when do I deliver something like that to somebody else, and it's going to have to be a really specific
yeah.
situation. Sure.
Well, I think that's one thing we've been working on with you, and I'm not the only one that sees this. I think
Yes,
virtually
sir.
everyone
Yes,
who's
sir.
trains here and everyone who's seen you compete is that we got to bring out the fire.
Yes, sir.
You're such a nice guy and so easygoing, laid back, but there needs to be that switch that we turn on. You can have all the skill in the world, but if you don't have that switch, that fire, then it's going to be hard to stand up to the flame of somebody else who's quite strong. And we started to see it by the end of that match.
Yes, sir.
It took a
Yes, sir.
couple of good hits to the head before we started to see, okay, let's get back in there. And I think we need to work on like closing the distance and just locking them up.
Yes, sir.
When you
Yes,
start
sir.
getting hit like
Getting
that.
in.
But that's something that we can work on over the next few months as we get ready for potentially the next Bushikan.
Yes, sir.
So, after kind of coming off the mats, what have been your thoughts about how you can prepare and do better
Yes,
next
sir.
time?
Yeah, so definitely rewatching the videos and kind of seeing the clips from the match, there were certainly times where watching those clips, I was like, okay, like that's about how I thought that was going. There were certain combinations, certain, I guess, attacks that I was making that I felt good about. And so seeing those, I was like, okay, I was right to feel good about those because those look good, and the way that I'm moving is making sense here. And um, particularly, yeah, maybe in the third round or so, there was a combination that every single technique I threw connected in the way that I wanted it to, and that feeling was awesome. I was like, oh my gosh, like okay,
Yeah.
this is what we're building toward. And I can say during the first match, the first Bushikan, that was not really my experience, and so already, over my 2 times doing this, that's a big growth
Yeah.
edge, I guess. I'm not sure what to call that, but
You got some really good roundhouse kicks in there.
yes,
which,
sir. Surprising. Surprising, yes, sir.
That's one of your weaker techniques,
Yes, sir.
but you got it. So maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and start working on that kick because it seems to have a lot of potential for you.
Yes, sir. I had 2 big goals this time around. One was combinations, and specifically not throwing single techniques. And did I 100% accomplish that? No. I mean, watching the clips, there were certainly good techniques thrown, but really trying to follow up, like we talk about all the time. Don't just throw one, throw 2, throw 3, sometimes 4. And so that was something I was actively trying to remind myself during this match. And then the other was just targeting, specifically targeting. So thinking high and low, or thinking, if I'm going to throw up here, maybe there's something coming from this side or something coming from this side. And I think I found success in that, especially in the last 2 rounds, actually. Cole, my opponent, came up to me afterward and he was like, you got some really good body shots in that last couple of rounds that I wasn't expecting. And I was like, yes, like that was my plan. Like I wanted to focus more on the body this time around because last time it was all straight in, straight to the face. And that was, watching the clips from the first match, something that I realized, I can't just go straight to the face every time. Like his body's right there. I got to get underneath and see if I can make contact. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Those are the big things kind of coming out of this one. And, also just general fitness. I'm feeling.
I would say that was one of your strengths.
Yes, sir.
Cole is obviously in very good shape. I mean,
Yes, sir.
I think he was fighting without a shirt on, right? Because
He was.
had like
Yes, sir.
6
He was big. Yes, sir.
He is a pretty fit guy. but you had better cardio than him, which is very surprising.
I
And
I was feeling that, especially at the end. Not to disparage Cole, but the last couple of rounds, I saw his kind of wind start to go out, or like I was like,
mm,
oh, okay, and then I was thinking, I don't feel great because I've been getting hit
sure.
around, but I can keep going. I can keep going, and
So though it's AIDS match too.
yes,
So
it can really,
I guess we must be working on cardio more than we realize.
yes, sir, tap in, and I think that's also a matter of I am here all the time, like,
It's
and
true.
sometimes I forget that most
Mm,
people are not doing, 6 days a week at the
mm,
studio and, various levels of intensity with training. But, if my baseline is even an hour, 6 days a week, like that's not nothing. And,
yeah.
but it's also can always be improved on. So that's what I was thinking is like when I walk off the mats, I'm thinking, why am I feeling tired at all? Like I want to just walk off and be ready to go, be ready for round two. Um, yes, sir.
So after this experience, kind of coming back to the dojo, what kind of advice would you give the next generation of students that are going to go out and start competing for the
Yes,
school?
sir. Yes, sir.
What did you learn? What did you pass on?
We have to talk about contact. This is something that you and I have been talking about for the past couple of years. How do we continue to raise the level of contact in the dojang to a level that will get the students in the right mindset
Mm,
to really pay attention when they're sparring. One of the biggest things that, teaching the beginner classes, and of course the younger kids too, the warriors classes, is we talk about students being a little bit checked out, right? Where, okay, I'm here and I'm kind of sparring and, I'm throwing my legs out. But, like we were saying a little bit ago, yeah, when you get hit hard in the face or when you get kicked hard in the leg, you're going to be focused. You're going to say, whoa, that was a totally different experience than I was expecting. I better keep my mind sharp. I better watch this person. I better keep my hands up. So that would be my big advice is continue to engage deeply with the level of contact and the rate that we are sparring.
I think
Yes,
because
sir.
we start with light contact, it's a curse and a blessing.
Yes, sir.
It's a blessing because all of our students learn very good self-control.
Yes,
And we
sir.
don't have an issue with people going berserk like I've seen in many other schools. But the problem is because we start with light contact, they think that full contact is light contact.
Yes, sir.
And we need to kind of mentor them up to be more comfortable throwing more weight behind their technique. And, the first time they hit someone like that, the other person looks a little like jostled. Um, yeah, you want to pull back because you don't want to upset somebody, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we're going around and telling everyone, look, you're going to get hit, you're going to get jostled,
Yes, sir.
it's going to be a little intense, but
Yes, sir.
it's better now with your friend here at the dojo than, when you're going to a competition, you're getting hit, in the face, full contact. And not that that was the first time you get hit in the face, full contact, but, that can be the case if people
Yes,
aren't
sir.
careful.
Yes, sir. And I think, yeah, the approach that we're taking on the mats right now, which is starting light contact, no contact to the head, showing to the face, and then building on that. So, intermediate class, we're going full contact to the body, light contact to the head, and then, continuing to build on that. I can say, after these past few matches, yeah, start by getting hit in the body hard and getting hit in the head light. And then, see what you can take here and just build it, build it, build it. And eventually you're going to get hit and go, okay, that's about where I don't want to get hit anymore, and yeah, that's when you're going to start focusing is, okay, I can say after this match, I don't want to get hit that hard in the face again. So I'm going to be watching that hand and making sure that my head is
Yes.
not there when it's coming in. So that's the theory. But
I will say that in the early days of Taekwondo, we kicked each other in the head so much
yes,
that
sir.
I got a little head phobia. I really I don't care about my body. Like I'll take lots of shots in my body
Mm,
to protect my head.
mm.
Like everything's about the head, and I think that's a good sense to have.
Yes,
It's like the
yes,
right
sir.
sense. if you think a headshot and a body shot are the same, we just take a couple headshots and you'll have
Yes,
changed
sir.
your mind.
Yes, sir. Yeah, there was an interesting moment where Cole threw an uppercut straight to the solar plexus, and it knocked the wind out of me a little bit. But we practice this, we train for this. This is part of my job as being the Yuki, and like you breathe out, and so it caught me a little off guard. But in that moment, I was like, thank God that wasn't my head. You got underneath, and I was like, all right, I can breathe out of this. I can catch my breath. I can refocus, and yes, sir, yes, sir. Um, I think the other thing I'll say as well in regard to the students is trust what you're learning at Rise of Phoenix Martial Arts. I this is the only place that I've trained, and these are people. Some of these guys coming out to the Bushikan tournament exclusively are training at fight gyms, or they're exclusively training, in a garage, just like punching each other in the face over and over again. And so after years here at the dojo, when I step out onto that floor, when I step into that ring, I feel confident. I feel like, okay, let's see what we can do here. And I certainly do not feel ill prepared when it comes to what I've learned here. In fact, I think a lot of times, and this is what we're hearing coming back from these tournaments, is that the master instructors around, the people who are watching the fights, see maybe myself and Zaid, and they go, that's not really what we were expecting to see
But
from
great
these
character.
two. Yes, sir.
I mean, we've
Yes, sir.
we've heard that all over the place, from the AOK to the Bushikan,
Yes, sir.
wherever we go. People will come back and they'll say, "Wow, your students have so much heart, so much respect, so much discipline," um, and I just consider us blessed to have that. But that's also why I keep putting such a focus on those things, because when I look around, I see it waning everywhere.
Yes,
and
sir.
I feel like this
Yes,
is one
sir.
of the last bastion that's, keeping it alive. I was sitting down with Grandmaster Juarez afterwards, and he's like, we're going to be getting you guys rash guards and fight shorts and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you know, I'm not going to wear a rash guard or a fight shorts,
Yes, sir.
because for me, it's all about making a statement, going out there in our traditional uniforms, bowing, shaking hands, you know, win or lose, good attitude.
Yes, sir.
That's the
Yes,
most
sir.
important thing. It's not um, a an empty, wishful, you know, statement. It really is the core of what it means to be a warrior, because if you don't go out there with those things, you're no better than the person on the street who's trying to start fights and
Yes, sir.
intimidate people with
Yes,
their
sir.
physicality. Like, that is literally what separates the fighter from the martial artist. And that's why I don't like those terms. When I'm talking about
Yes,
competition,
sir.
I'm always saying your match. How was your match? How was the competition?
Yes, sir.
Not how was the
Yes, sir.
fight? How those are some strong fighters. Even in Taekwondo, there's been some change to call, uh, practitioners fighters. No, no, we're not.
Yes,
We're
sir.
not fighters.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we are gonna fight, I guess, but I don't want to lean into that too much. I think that's
As
the
the
wrong
sole
direction.
identity. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I will say, that was one of my favorite moments of the match, was throughout the match, not even at the end. Cole and I are looking at each other, we're nodding to each other, we're shaking hands, we're like, all right, let's keep going, let's do this, let's keep going. And maybe, I mean, this is something I was talking to Miss Emily a little bit afterward. I think I need to turn down the instructor, Mr. Trader, a little bit,
Oh yeah.
because there are times when I'll get hit and I'll go like, oh, or I'll go, but it's like, no, don't show them that
Yeah,
they got
well,
you.
yeah, yeah. The way you present yourself, that's why a
Yes,
lot of people,
sir.
they'll kick and be like, yeah, woo, like they got a point or something, and it's like,
Yes, sir.
uh, I don't like that style, but the reason why they do that, you see it in other sports too,
Yes.
basketball,
Yes, sir.
whatever, is because they're trying to show off their success, and you don't need to show off your success, but you certainly don't need to downplay it. Like,
Yes, yes,
oh,
sir.
that was a good hit,
Yes,
man.
sir. That was, maybe it's kind of a double-edged sword, because maybe the most memorable moment uh, from this match, was that leg kick that he got, because this is like, well, I don't know how much I want to give away, but getting hit in the leg doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
And Cole nailed a beautiful, beautiful shin roundhouse kick straight to my thigh. And in the video, in the clip, I just go, oh! I was just like, oh no, because I could feel it. I could feel it. And I've been limping for the past 3 days, and I was like, no, this is it. This is the kick. And so, again, reflecting on that, something I want to work on for next time is like, just make that sound inside. Like, because right after I made that sound, he paused and then he went boom, and he came in and just boom, 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 and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of gave him the signal that.
We see that a lot
Yes,
with grappling too.
Mm.
Like not with everyone, but certain people like they do a lot of grunting and groaning.
Yes, yes,
And I
sir.
always tell them like, if you're grunting and groaning, you should be tapping or keeping it inside. And that's for a safety issue. Like
Yes,
if
sir.
you're like then I think you are. I don't know if you're saying tap or you're saying
Yes, sir. Yes,
Like
sir.
you gotta be very clear. Don't say anything or say tap. Um, but I think this is an interesting point to add on there is that you also don't want to portray yourself as losing.
Yes, sir.
So then when it's a decision, the judges say, well, that person was really groaning over there, and it seems
Yes,
like
sir.
they were
Yes,
kind
sir.
of losing. So
Yes, sir.
in color,
I
they
think
see.
I can take a page from my little brother's playbook here. One of my favorite dojang memories is, it's before class and Charlie comes in. He's like 7 years old, and the couch is over there by the windowsill. And so sometimes the students will sit down and accidentally hit their head on the windowsill. And I see Charlie leap into the couch. He leaps, and I just hear wham! He hits his head so hard. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. Like he just hit his head so hard, he's going to be really, really hurt. And I go, Charlie? And he looks at me and he goes, and I was like, whoa, dude, whoa. But he took all of that pain and he just like shoved it down deep inside somewhere. I don't know where that goes. I guess it comes out when he like attacks me in the dark, but so funny. And
That's awesome.
but also like warrior spirit. I was like,
yeah, I think
and
there's definitely a balance here. You hear so much about letting out your emotion and talking through, and that is one of those feminine virtues that I think is good. But there's also the masculine virtue of holding it in, and the reason why that is good is because it doesn't cause panic. It doesn't cause those emotions to be vomited onto the other people around you. And if everyone's like trying to share the way they're feeling, basically everyone gets stressed out and has anxiety and
yes, sir.
all this kind of
Yes,
stuff. So, the warrior mentality, which is I will shoulder my own personal burden, like whatever's going on with me, my pain, my agony, my stress, my insecurity, I'm gonna hold it in so that you don't feel that yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And giving that structure, giving that stability. Yes, sir. And we were talking a little bit before, coming on to the recording here about all the things that we learn in the martial arts. And I think, more and more as I talk about it over these past few years, the ability to convey these different lessons that you're learning. It's not just punching and kicking and fighting and all, like there's so much more that you can receive from this experience, and that goes into the emotional, it goes into the mental, into the spiritual, and that's an example of one of those things. Is no, like what does it mean to stay strong, in my life or in a match or on the mats when I'm teaching class or when I'm driving down the highway? Like how do I stay together? How do I continue to portray that sense of stability and strength in my life? So, yes, sir.
All right, some deep thoughts coming off
Yes,
the
sir.
mats at the Bushikan up there at Celis Brewery. I hope you guys enjoyed that little debriefing. I think we'll be checking in with Mr. Trader throughout his journey and other students here at the Academy. So let's keep training hard. Let's keep pushing ourselves to be the best that we can be. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with
Yes,
us,
sir.
Mr.
Thank you,
Trader.
sir.
If you enjoyed that podcast, please consider liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel, as well as hitting the notification bell. We offer in-person, group, and private lessons at our facility in Kyle, Texas, as well as virtual lessons anywhere in the world. If you'd like to learn more about our programs, you can find us online at risingphoenixtkd.com.